if you've got a top of the tree mask tech in your workshop and you're worried that you're going to lose them, you've got to open new opportunities for them.
Today's guest began his career as an apprentice, where most of us started. So we have a great guest on here from a starting standpoint, and he spent 13 years, not as an apprentice, mind you, 13 years through getting his license and understanding what flat rate is, getting into technical and diagnostic roles with Mercedes-Benz. Then career progression was able to move into dealer support for Yamaha. Now, this progression also led to Hyundai, where he supported 167 dealerships across all of Australia, a country that mimics in a lot of ways, whether it's them matching us or us matching them, the apprentice to journeyman process. He helped solve difficult dealer problems and also take and help dealers from a service department standpoint to the next level. The following is going to be a story of how pushing a broom evolves into helping dealers across an entire country. Welcome to the show, Nicholas Martin, and welcome to the French Turners podcast.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Josh.
So we've had a couple discussions now. You and I and Dale had a couple informal discussions before we ended up recording a session, which all of you will be able to see now live on the channel. But what it's really helped me understand, Nicholas, is that when you have technicians that are capable, that are driven, that are intelligent, that are experienced, they can really do anything with their experience. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's 5 years or 50 years, but that experience means something to a lot of different people. Now, it might mean working with your hands. It might mean working with your brain. It might be working and communicating with other dealers, other technicians, and other people, being able to put those three things together. And to me, it sounds like you have been kind of mixed all three together. When you're talking about dealer support, you're talking about being able to solve problems with your hands, being able to work through difficult challenges, and then being able to communicate with not only the OEM, who you work for and represent to this point, but also the dealers and the technicians in the store. That's a lot of problem solving and experiential knowledge, which is what we want to get to. But first, because those of you watching and listening right now, you might have heard the live that we did with Nicholas and Dale. We don't know anything about Nicholas and his background. So why don't we start at the beginning? What got you into the trade in the first place?
Listen, I was like, I think any other red-blooded teenage male, and I fell in love with cars pretty early on. I'd say probably around about 15, 16 when I had the ability to get my license. I actually never really wanted to be a mechanic early on. I actually wanted to be a doctor, which was an interesting change of things. Anyways, I digress. I fell in love with cars, got my first car, and I really started diving into doing my own handiwork on that and fixing it. And then I kind of fell in love with that fixing things and doing things with my hand and that whole logical skill set, which was really natural to me. So yeah, as I finished up my time in high school, I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And I got taken on. I actually gave a picture of myself inside the engine bay of my Toyota Celica at the time, which I was changing the engine on, to the service manager I was applying a job for. And I sat down with him, and before he even turned around and said, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to work, he says, you've got the job, now let's have a chat. So, it was really, really exciting start to the trade and in the industry. And that's pretty much how I got into being a mechanic from the offset. I suppose that love of cars, and then, that desire to want to fix problems as well.
Awesome. So as a interview tip here for any of you aspiring technicians out there that are watching this, it's like, how do I apply to a dealership, or how do I apply to a shop? How do I get a job at a dealership? Send a picture of yourself sitting inside an engine bay with no motor in it, saying, this is what I'm doing now, before I have your mentorship and experience being given to me every day and me producing something for you every day. I think that's a really great resume tidbit. Instead of a full resume, it's just a picture of you wrenching inside an engine bay.
Pictures say 1,000 words is the old expression. And I think this one was a really, really good one to pull me across the line.
Especially, and now if I recall, we were talking about this previously. It was a Celica, was it a GTS?
So it was a 1986. So it was a T, which wasn't a GTS. I think it was a GT back then, because obviously in Australia, when you're a young person, you're not allowed to have a turbocharged car back when I was a young person anyway. So it had to be the naturally aspirated version. But yeah, had the flip up headlights, and, yeah, it was very cool for me.
Back when Toyota was really cool. 86 to like 94 when it was really, really, really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cool era.
So I don't think we have time to try and explain the Australian driving license system, because it's really complicated. I also understand that while I would suggest that it's potentially better, because you guys have a whole engineering thing that I watch Marty and Moog all the time, but I still don't think I 100% understand, where you can build a car or modify a car and you take it to an engineering station and they say, okay, yeah, this is safe and this complies and whatever, we'll check mark it and now you can get insurance on it. Whereas here in Canada, they just go, no, it's modified. Nope. It's modified. It's not allowed. No. You guys, that sounds like it's a smart way to do it. You go to somebody who actually understands cars in some kind of way. They understand the rules. They understand the legalities, and say, hey, this is not something ridiculous. This is safe. Just go about your day.
Yeah. There's within limits,
Sounds
obviously, but there is obviously there is certain workshops that have engineering level licensing, so they can look at a setup. For example, you put bigger brakes on a car, that might be deemed illegal, but obviously, an engineer can write a certificate to say, hey, that's a upgrade that provides better performance in stopping. So it's legal.
Excellent. Okay. So this individual has seen a picture of you in an engine bay of a Celica and immediately went, you got the job. Let's have a chat. So you worked for that individual for, if I understand, did you work for that individual for like 13 years, or did you move a little bit?
Nope. So 13
years, one dude.
With one service manager. I mean, it was one dealership. The service manager changed probably after about 8 years. He retired, and then another guy stepped up and took over. But yeah, with the same dealership for 13 years.
Interesting. So one of the things that we regularly hear on the show is technicians who are bouncing around for one reason or another. Either the shop culture is bad, the leader's not great, the franchise or the OEM isn't great, or the group isn't great, or whatever. But being able to stay in one place with the same leader for at least 8 years, understanding that they've retired, also kind of puts a little nugget in my brain to ask you about. But that means that you had consistent education to me. Walk us through that first couple of years, being on board by a leader. It's like, I already know what kind of character you are. I want you to work for me and I want to teach you stuff. And then it obviously did over the course of 8 years. What was that first year like? What was that first couple of years like?
Yeah, so the first year was still really heavy on the brooms and mops. So let's not shy away from that. Like, the first year was very much, learning how to take care of equipment, clean tools, keep a workshop tidy, open, shut shop, take care of the guys if they need anything. And then it was over, when the tows times were finished, then it was like, hey, we're getting paired up with techs that are doing service work, and you're learning the ropes of how to do service. And then you get sort of moved around between different techs, so you can see each person's style, because everyone has a style of how they do a service. Some people put the car all the way up, drain the oil, and then look over the car and then bring it down halfway and check the wheels off and check brakes, stuff like that. Everyone's got a different style of the way they do that. So it's a good opportunity to get mixed around between different guys. But that was pretty much the first years, mainly how to take care of the shop, take care of the guys, take care of equipment, and then just learning how to service things. And that was pretty much year one for me.
Awesome. So this is, again, I like hearing this. And I realize folks that have been listening to the show for a long time, we're getting close to 5 years, but hearing these technicians who have evolved from technicians to either diagnostic technicians, lead, foremen, service managers, and beyond, like Nicholas, you're hearing somewhat similar stories. So one of the two things that seem to be common about technicians who advance outside of being a technician, I use the phrase just a technician, I mean beyond, meaning leading technicians or doing something inside the industry, but outside of the dealership, there's a commonality here that seems to come up on a regular basis. Either you have one dedicated individual that is basically a full-time dedicated mentor. They spend all of their time, energy, and effort on you, at least for the first year, if not the first, like almost 5 years, teaching these technicians the ropes, teaching what it is like to maintain a clean bay, what it's like to maintain tools, not just your own tools, but the special service tools for the shop. Understanding maybe a little bit about the business, but a lot about diagnostics, processes, really digging into that mentorship thing. Or if they don't necessarily have a key person in the shop, like a shop foreman doing that mentorship, they use all of the technicians in the shop and rotate that technician through. That way they can learn all of the different ways to do something. But again, it's at the same root. It's learning the process of the shop, learning how to take care of the team, learning how to lead informally, because if you're working with each one of the technicians in the shop, you need to learn how to communicate with each one. Each one's a little bit different. Each one wants a little bit different thing, and knowing how to anticipate those things as an apprentice is a really big skill to learn. So those are the two things that really are common to next level technicians. So shop managers, service managers, fixed directors, please take that into account when you're thinking about how do we keep technicians and how do we onboard technicians that are willing to say, these aspiring technicians. Those are two really great ways, and seemingly try to test and true ways to keep technicians long term and turn them into really great technicians long term. To that point, if you're not doing that, it's probably a good idea to start. And then you can call on people like Nicholas or Dale or Richard Mueller or Marshall Sheldon and ask them, it's like, what do you do to take the first step into that direct one-to-one? Or what do you do to start getting the apprentice around the shop to teach them? So that's a really great story of firsthand person who has obviously taken their career to the next level to do that and how it started. So take us to the next portion of that. You had a mentor for 8 years from a business standpoint, and you also had the technicians of the shop that you were learning from over those first 8 years. You pride yourself in being someone who is a student of the game, say the love of the game. Take us through what it took to get you to a point where you're now, let's say you were 13 years in, that 5 years to 13 years, I'd love to discuss. How do you get to the next stage? So what's the stuff in between?
Yeah, so I think you're smack on the money. That's where the fruit is, right? Like in between that 5 and 13, or let's say 7.5 onwards, right? I think, those first sort of early years of your trade are building your craft, learning what you do. For us in Australia, obviously it's 4 years. And then once you finish your 4 years, you get signed off and you're a tradesman, right? I was very fortunate though, as part of the Mercedes-Benz accelerated program here in Australia, which means I finished with a dual qualification. So a qualification is not only a motor mechanic, but also an automotive electrician as well. So I had two trades when I finished, which is quite lucky. I suppose what for me was those biggest years was, I finished my 4 or 5 years and still felt like I didn't know anything. And I feel like a lot of technicians reach that point where, they've just finished their time and they're still learning. They're still really eager to learn because you haven't been taught everything. There's still things you need to know. So for me, I got heavy into the repair work, which I feel like a lot of guys fall into that trend as well. They get really good at doing certain repairs. As for me, I was really good at doing air conditioning, interior work. And then I started getting really good at doing dual clutch transmissions and V6 engine balance shafts, right? So, I started getting good at these sort of components. And that was then when my service manager at the time basically pulled me up and said, hey, how would you like to go from there to the next step? So, I've been doing all these repair jobs and maintenance work and all that kind of stuff. And then I fell under the wing of a really, really smart and a really humble certified diagnostic technician by the name of Martin Gins. Absolute amazing individual. His ability to diagnose a car is incredible. And I fell under his wing, and that was the one person that I basically then became hooked on for the next 4 to 5 years, whilst I was essentially learning and growing myself into that role, the certified diagnostic technician role with Mercedes-Benz, which is essentially the master tech for any other brand. It's essentially the top of the tree when it comes to the technical training level. You get to the very, very top.
Awesome. So one of the interesting things is when you start to talk to as many different brands of diagnostic technicians as I have up to this point, and I've been blessed to be able to do that. You have the master diagnostic technician through Toyota, and they also have another qualification, SQS, which I can't remember it is off the top of my head. But then you've got, I think it's World is the GM designation of like the most amount of diagnostic training or training at all from GM, I think it is. I remember we used to call them, I don't know whether they still call them this at all or not. At CDJR, it's doctor of the house is when you physically can't get any more training. I love it. It was a really great way to separate it out, right? And it made sense. It makes sense when you get to a point where you physically can't get any more training at all from a brand at that level. And you've got 10 plus years within a brand that literally they have to make new training for you to be able to take new training. And I think that's at the point where many of those brands, and now I've understand there's been several, where the brands start to look to the doctors of the houses to then become the trainers, right? Now they're reaching out to the dealerships like, hey, you've got this technician who's been with the company for say 10 years. They're now doctor of the house within the brand training, and we have maybe 10 of those in the country, 20 of those in the country. We'd really like them to come to the technical facility to start to train technicians. Is it possible for us to reach out to them? Whatever. I've heard of that happening a couple of times through a couple of different brands, Toyota, CDJR being two of the ones that I have actually heard that happen. So you're now into it where you're not only getting the diagnostic training and the training from Mercedes-Benz, you're also getting kind of that one-on-one with somebody who is deep in the weeds of the stuff that nobody else likes to fix. Again, a recurring theme on the show where fixing the things that nobody else can fix or fixing the things that nobody else wants to fix, right? Those kinds of things. What's maybe some challenges that over that 13 years we're seeing with Mercedes-Benz, irrespective of whether it's a Benz or not, it's irrelevant because the actual process is going to be different. What's something that you had to learn that is diagnostic related, but isn't diagnostic?
I think, like just basic physics. I feel like this is something that, it's going to come up a lot, right? Like it's not automotive. Okay. I don't expect guys to understand this, but a lot of automotive principles, a lot of understanding how a car works, a lot of it comes down to straight physics, like Newton's law, like, you got, we're saying, you got like, just understanding, electromagnetic forces, even some of the chemistry as well, like how components are weighed and stuff like that. But I think that's something that's a little bit outside the square that will help progress you. I suppose that's something that I definitely helped progress me, because it just helps you understand how things are actually trying to work. Like we can understand like, hey, a motor is designed to turn something. But to understand how that electrical energy is turned into electromagnetic force, to turn into kinetic energy, to turn something, helps you break down things a little bit more simplified as well.
I like it. I like it. I think that's one of the things that it's a challenge to learn, man. It's a big challenge. And I think there might be a undervalued learning there, a tremendously undervalued set of learning there. So to give an example, what I think where we're going with this is, couple of big things that happened in my career as well is when you can understand thermodynamics to a certain point, if you don't understand it at all and how it works, that's going to be a problem for you from a diagnostic standpoint. Because, for example, heat is if things have no heat, they're dead, right? Pure and simple. That's life. When you're talking about inanimate objects, when you're talking about metals, especially when things are cold, they're not moving. Like the metal, the molecules and the atoms and ions and things, they're not really moving, or they're moving very slowly in comparison to when they're warm. So when things are warm and when things are hot, things expand, things move, things also transfer energies. You get things like you were talking about electromagnetic stuff. You get all kinds of electromagnetic stuff that happens in engine bays that we don't necessarily take into account, right? You can have metal moving at 6,000 RPM. When things are warm, they're going to be a lot more malleable than when they are cold. So when you get noises when things are warm versus when they're cold, that's a thing that you got to take into account. It's not just that it makes noise when it's hot. Well, why does it make noise when it's hot? Is there something locking up because it's moving more because it's hot? Or is it because we have a lack of lubrication? Or is things, do you get noises occurring because when engine is warm, cylinder block is warm, which means cylinder head is warm, which means exhaust manifold is warm, which means exhaust is warm, which means all of that is flexed. And when it's really, really, really hot, now you have, let's say, an exhaust pre-catalytic converter, if it's not integrated with the exhaust manifold still, if it's flexed enough under heat, now it's rattling, but you have to get it hot in order to do it. But that's not something that was communicated by the customer on the work order saying it rattles when I do this. Well, if you go out on a 5-minute test drive, you may not get that rattle to occur because it's not heat soaked, right? And that's a thermodynamic thing to think about. You got to It may not be super high level thermodynamics, but it's still high level dynamics, right? You got to think about those things.
Yeah, guys deal with
And
this
those
stuff
are
all the
really
time.
all the kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah, guys deal
Like
with this
you
stuff
guys
all the
deal with it
time.
probably regularly.
Yeah, like, you got water leaks coming into a car. That's actually fluid dynamics, right? Because you're trying to understand some sort of fluid flow over an object, right? I had a good one about a year and a half ago where I diagnosed a Kona with a noise in a front apron fender, and it was a broken weld, right? But the noise was only there when the temperature of the panel was below 30 degrees. The moment the panel temperature went above 30 degrees, right, it's gone, because metal expansion of steel is 0.18 millimeters per degree Celsius. So, these are the kind of things that I'm trying to say, right? Like, it's like rudimentary understanding of some chemistry and physics, right, will help you really well with a lot of automotive engineering that you'll deal with fixing cars.
Well, that just understanding that things expand when they get warm, contract when they get cold is not necessarily just enough. You've just said a very eloquent formula that I've never heard of before. I knew existed, but I've never needed the time and spent the time to go look for it. But that expansion formula to understand, okay, is what's on the car that will theoretically expand that amount that might cause a leak in the areas we're talking about. Being able to think about that, have that in the back of your head, okay, what are the things in this area that if they expand that amount by that amount of heat will either prevent a leak or make the leak happen? That is something that we need to think about, especially as diagnostic technicians. And as a technician who is not quite there yet, and I have other opinions about diagnostics as well, but as an apprentice and as a young mechanic and as a not yet, shall we say, expert mechanic, and I use that loosely as a term of hours put in. We work 2,000 hours a year. If you're only doing 2,000 hours a year, it takes you 5 years to get 10,000 hours, which theoretically makes you an expert in anything, which is not the case because you haven't done 10,000 hours in one thing. You've done 10,000 hours in about 10,000 different things. So I digress. When you get to about the 10-year mark, I would say you can get in close to the expert mark. But I would suggest that a very small percentage of technicians, diagnostic or otherwise, are thinking about panel gaps, welds, rubber expansion, metal expansion, different kinds of metal expansion, excuse me, at a specific expansion rate to think about a leak. You got fluid dynamics, you got thermal dynamics, and you got those kinds of things. So these are the kinds of things that lead a technician to go from pushing a broom and a mop to a certified diagnostic technician. And now we're talking about stuff that go, okay, this individual is now doing really, really, really hard things from a diagnostic standpoint, has all of the diagnostic training that we can give them. What's the next thing that we should give them as a high value leader? Because if you service managers, fixed directors that are listening to this is the kind of individual that you're probably struggling to try and keep, right? Nicholas, you've probably talked to dealers who are struggling to keep the kind of technician that you were. How do I keep them in the shop versus the OEM taking them, or keep them in the shop versus somebody else taking them, because they are extremely valuable? So maybe have that a bit of a discussion from that standpoint. I'm sure you were getting all kinds of like, hey, do you want to come work for me? Hey, do you want to come work for me? From a lot of people by that standpoint.
Yeah, so by that standpoint, I had at least 2 offers within 1 year to move to 2 other Mercedes-Benz dealerships the moment that I'd become a qualified, certified diagnostic technician. And I suppose, you spend a lot of time in these forums with these guys and they hear about some of the work that you do, that, word of mouth gets around between service managers, foremen, certified diagnostic techs. And so, yeah, you start getting phone calls from people saying, hey, do you want to come? I'm going to pay, right? And I think when you're young, the pay can be really a, like a big part for you, could really push you to join. I think if there's one piece of advice that I could give to service managers, like, dealer principals, directors, anything like that, if you've got a top of the tree master tech in your workshop and you're worried that you're going to lose them, you've got to open new opportunities for them. So don't worry so much about how much you're paying them. That's something that you can work on, jumping huge leaps and bounds. But I think the main thing would be opening opportunities for them, whether that's like, hey, say you're a multi-franchise, you do, so let's say, in the States, you do like GM, Hyundai, Kia, whatever. Open opportunities like these guys are now your technical leads instead of their like technicians or their diagnostic techs. They work in an office space while still being in the workshop, but they're diagnosing the cars as if they're separated from the workshop, right? As if they're working for the OEM, but they're actually working for your dealership. right? Not only does that pick them up and give them another level, give them another progression piece if they're not ready to move into a more business area, they want to stay in that area. It just keeps them inside your shop as well, because that knowledge is so incredibly hard to get back once it's lost. You got to hire somebody else, and you got to hope that they have the same level of knowledge as that person that you've cultured and built over those period of time as well.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think that's something that a lot of dealers are going to have difficulty doing, especially in North America, because efficiency and productivity is such a sticking point.
A whole non-productive
It's a
technician.
challenge. I agree with it. A productive technician. I agree. That is a great opportunity for a technician who's got a lot of time in, who really, really, really loves the diagnostic portion, but not so much the everyday work. And they've now done 10 years of the boring work, and they want to get into the really nitty gritty stuff. The challenge is the really nitty gritty stuff, if you're no longer being a productive technician, is really hard to pencil for a lot of dealer principals, a lot of GMs, a lot of service managers. It's really difficult. The challenge is, what's more valuable to you as a high value leader? What's more valuable to you? Losing a 15 to 20 year experienced technician that has all of the accolades, experience, and certifications of your brand, losing them entirely out of your shop, or potentially taking a productive hit to pay them to keep them so that they can not only do your diagnostic things for that shop and potentially others in your group, but also losing the mentorship, guidance, and leadership of that technician to have someone to look to from your apprentices, from your technicians that are not quite senior, that support and that enthusiasm to say, hey, my dealer principal has this really great opportunity, and move this individual who is really, really awesome at Diagnosis so that they stay in the shop and help me as a technician, but free up a bay for someone else to make more money, or add another person who can also make a lot of money. That kind of, it's how you think as big outside the bubble as much as inside the bubble, because now you're keeping that technician. It's an opportunity. I would love to talk to a dealer principal that at length about that opportunity to see how it could get structured, whether it's a dealer principal, a GM, a fixed director of a corporate group, to see how that could pencil and understand it, so that maybe other dealer principals, other groups, other shops could go, okay, this makes sense. I have a similar circumstance where I have a technician who is maybe slowing down, like maybe their brake jobs and their tires and their alignments are no longer the 120, 130% that they used to be. Maybe they're just about 100%. Now there's every once in a while I hear him call in, say, my back's hurt, I can't come in for the next 2 days. Maybe that's an opportunity for them to say, okay, they're a really great technician. This is an opportunity. We figured out the business side of things to make it work. Here you go. I would love to, anybody listening, please reach out. I would love to walk through the business portion of that to actually see how that works. So that takes us to the next step. You got into an opportunity to work as a technical side and leading dealerships, like a lot of them, the number was like 167. I think it's an obscure number, which makes sense. You were leading technicians essentially in that from a technical side of things. And we kind of got a little bit of that into the last special, but I want to go a little bit deeper into that, because we talked about one thing. What are some common things that you can share from a technical side that you dealt on an ongoing basis that you almost have templatized responses to now?
Yeah, listen, I think it's gonna come back to the same thing we talked about in this special, unfortunately, which is mainly getting cases with no direct values. It's like, I checked something, it was okay, right? So this comes back to guys just making sure that they write down exactly what they measured, because that will help us. So if you're going to say, I've got a template, or I'm going to go back to say something, I'm going to say, please provide a flight record of engine module with all data selected. That's going to be something that I have as a template pretty much, because, you might say, hey, I've got a misfire concern. I've swapped, cylinder 1, cylinder 2, the coil, the plug to 1 to 4 or whatever, or something like that. Right. But then they won't provide the engine data. So it's like, okay, well, I can't see if it moved. And I think that's something that,
right.
I think that's something that, reason we can say it's a template thing, but listen, I think the key thing to pull away from that when we come to a communication standpoint, this is something that I've learned over a long period of time, especially dealing with people, and I'm still learning this every day, because I get different people I speak to, are completely different understandings as well. I think you got to understand that as a tech, when you're working, you think that I am standing there beside you and I can see what you're doing, right? And then in reality, I actually have no idea what you're doing and I rely sheerly on what you provide back. So it's really, really important to pretend like I don't know anything and I'm not beside you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see how that comes into play. So let's maybe play kind of a, I won't necessarily say role play, but let me see if I can put this in perspective for technicians out there listening, shop foremen that are listening. When you have a difficult vehicle of any size, shape, category, automotive, diesel, off-highway, an excavator, it doesn't matter. These folks like Nicholas, like Dale, like a few others that I'm hopefully going to have on the show as well to get some more context across brands and industries. Most of them genuinely so far, most of them have done what you do. Most of them have done what you do. Maybe not for the brand you're in. So let's say you're working for a Hyundai and you call into Hyundai and talk to engineering or field service or whatever you call it. They may not have had 15 years of Hyundai experience, but they have had probably 10 to 15 years of experience working on something and have got to a point like Nicholas where they are a lead diagnostic technician or they're certified at a high level or they're very well trained at a high level. So they understand 98% of the base principles that you understand, but perhaps for a different brand. But at the end of the day, they don't have your eyeballs. They don't have your hands. And even with video, it's not enough because video can really only show enough. You need video and audio and you need written. So I think what Nicholas is asking for all of you that are listening, communicate to your friends, your family, your technicians, your service managers. There is no amount of detail which is too much, especially when you're dealing with high-level complex challenges. There's no level of detail that is too much. I've been told that before. That's too much. It's too much. I'm sorry, but when you're talking about a car, we're talking about a fluid leak at a certain temperature, and you're talking about fluid dynamics. You're talking about, if I recall the number, what was the number? 0.0818 millimeters?
0.018 millimeters per degree Celsius for steel.
So when you're talking about dealing with that kind of a challenge, or while you're dealing with a CAN bus challenge where you get a failure once every 100 seconds, and the failure is like a tenth of a volt. No amount of information is going to be too much because this dude right here that we're talking to today needs all of it to help you. All of it. So I asked for a template. Well, the template is, yes, all of it. Give all of the information.
Give me everything you have.
Take another step. Give them everything. So let's take the next step. So technical services, technical support. Now, we got to briefly talking about it, but it wasn't the key point. I want to talk about your dealer advisory as you move towards less of the specific technical support and more about dealer advisory and what you're kind of doing now at a higher level. Walk us through that because I've not seen it as much communicated as well as you did. So walk us through a little bit of that.
So yeah, I suppose what that means now for me is I am voice of expertise in the technical area. And now you put that together with business acumen, right, to understand what that means for your business, right? So for example, let's say you have a transmission that fails on a brand new car. Now I understand what that means from a technical standpoint. Now there's many different facets and avenues and ways we can fix that. We can replace the transmission. We can pull the transmission apart and repair whatever part, right? Understand the bigger picture. So let's say this car has 1,000 kilometers on it. It's had an unfortunate manufacturing defect. And now the customer is seeking some form of consumer law fix, i.e. they want a refund or buyback, because this is normally what the guys that are in the master tech area are always dealing with. They're dealing with, hey, I've got to stop this car from going any further from a legal standpoint. Mm-hmm. So my role from a dealer advisory standpoint now is more so, let's go on the first topic there, which is understanding what is the issue with the car and expressing that in a very basic term so that people understand, and then looking at what the best outcome for the business is in how we fix and approach the problem. So, as I said, if that means replacing a transmission, that might be one option. Repairing a transmission might be another option. Hey, do we have a brand new stock vehicle? Can we steal a transmission off a stock vehicle to save this one to keep going? What that means from a greater standpoint, from a franchising point, does that mean we need to help out with lease plan or something like that, right? So there's a lot of facets to that dealer advisory side of it. And then the other side of it for me is just the general thing that I've been working my way up to as well, which is the whole mentoring techs and dealers and helping dealers build these techs to be the best that they can be. So that's one of the things that I'm more passionate about, but the new part of my role is more about actually helping businesses make the right call from a technical aspect, not just what the problem is, how we fix it from a business aspect.
When you have a customer who's bought a 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 vehicle from a manufacturer, and then they have a failure, a massive failure, potentially very quick to purchase time, that manufacturer is now in a position where, how, to your point, how do we best solve this situation, right? How do we ensure that we maintain all of our values as a brand from a business standpoint, as well as do the best we possibly can for the customer? How do we mitigate risk? How do we make the best business decision, both for us as a brand, meaning the OEM, as well as the dealer themselves? Because the dealer has a reputation to also hold true, right? And this is where we start to talk about leadership at a very high scale. Brands will have people who represent the brands, like Nicholas, right? There will be a host of people, like not necessarily your specific position. There will be obviously lawyers for the brand. There will be the PR person for the brand. There will be the marketing person for the brand. There will be an operations person for the brand, and you trying to make the best decision for the brand. And sometimes that decision is better or worse depending on the customer's standpoint. Because then we also have to take into account the dealership. We have the technician that's involved. We have the service manager involved. We have the GM or dealer principal involved. Maybe we have a group. Maybe it's a 3, 500, 200 store group that also has a reputation to manage. When we're talking about reputation management in this sense, we're talking about a very large scale for what is potentially a $7,000 to $10,000 problem. But that $7,000 to $10,000 problem could snowball into something much, much, much bigger if that customer is not well taken care of. When we have customers who start talking about legal action for certain things, we have to be very careful. This is why no amount of detail as a technician is a bad thing. You want to give the dealership and the OEM as much information as you possibly can, because A, it means you're thorough. They have all the information. There's nothing hidden, which means you as a technician have done your job. You as a technician then are also taking care of the customer because you're giving them transparency. These are all the things that I have done to make sure that you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, are taken care of. That way they see you in a good light. That's also a good thing for the dealership. So when in terms of dealer advisory, now let's see how we can phrase this to ensure that you can answer this. From a dealer advisor standpoint, what are the things that you can share that might help a technician or a service manager through a challenge that they might be facing similar to what you're talking about?
Yeah, so I think best advice I can give you is when you write your RO on the back of your RO, go a step further, make it report style. Make sure you can, if you can take photos on your phone and print those photos out and attach them to the RO, notarize, circle things. So what I'm trying to get to here is if you can do as much of a report, almost like a evidential investigation report from the get-go, that really helps give you guys the best stance going forward, because otherwise it relies heavy on the OEM to come and do that evidence collection. It's the fault, for example, let's say it's an intermittent, or let's just say the customer, as Josh said, becomes irate and they don't want to return the vehicle, then you lose that opportunity to capture that evidence. So yeah, we're going to go back on the whole, making sure you get everything you got, but if you can get it in a report and evidence style collection, that's going to really help your give them a strong fighting position, and also helps the OEM make the best educated decision with that information as well. Because one thing I want to bring up, sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean fixing the car. Like sometimes the best choice is not necessarily fixing the car, right? But we need all of the information to make the best choice possible.
Right. And this kind of leads into the thing that Josh Arnold and I have been saying for well over a year now, especially with the VMPIs. Like when we're talking about the 1% of the 1% where this kind of circumstance can potentially come up. If you operate efficiently with the customer in mind with video, you're also protecting yourself. From a technician standpoint, you're protecting yourself. So I don't want to suggest that the only reason to do video is to protect yourself. But when you are clear, you communicate well, you are transparent with the customer. One of the things that we know from a leader standpoint is if you are transparent as a technician with the customer, they trust you. It's just common psychology. When you do that repeatedly, you have built a bank of trust over a period of time for them to trust you. So let's suggest this is the third vehicle. Let's kind of give kind of a quasi example here. Let's say this is the third vehicle this particular customer has bought from you. And the last two vehicles over the last 10 years, again, let's assume that the MPI existed for the last 10 years. Every time the vehicle came in for service, it got a video. Every time it got a massive repair of some description, like it got tires and brakes and tire rods and alignment and whatever, and it was like a $5,000 bill, they got a mid and a post repair, like Josh Arnold suggests, depending on the size, the shape, and whatever of the repair. And they've never once not gotten a video. And now they've just bought this third vehicle from you, and it's 500 kilometers or 1,000 miles in. And we have this massive transmission failure, like Nicholas suggests. If you as a technician and as you as a business have done video all the way up to that point, but miraculously there's no video of this one, what's the customer going to do? What's the customer going to say? What's the customer going to think? But if you are consistent with it, saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, these are the pictures that we've taken. This is the work order we've written. These are the things that we've discussed. This is the granular data that we've discovered at this point. This is the video that we've taken during the test drive of the vehicle when you first came in, because we hooked up a camera on the dash and went for a drive with the vehicle with you, with the shop foreman. This is the video of the second test drive that we did because we couldn't duplicate the fault with the customer on the first time around with the customer, but we were able to duplicate it this time around. We've now submitted this. This is the case number to the OEM talking about this problem. These are the pictures that we've taken afterwards. When you are consistent with the video, when you're consistent with the pictures, and when you're consistent with the detail, customers will then trust you. And then what happens with the customer? It's like, okay, this is normal. We have a process. The last 10 years have shown me that they do video. They give me all the information. They give me all the things to make decisions on. And then now, good, bad, or otherwise, like Nicholas has suggested, sometimes the best case is not fixing the car. You now have the OEM and the dealer support to say this is the best decision for this customer. And now the customer is probably going to go, hey, they've done all of this information. They've taken care of me. I can see they've done the work. I can see video. I can see they've done the work to try and take care of me. And this is the outcome that they've come to suggest that I take. I'm probably going to take that outcome. But if you don't, and you do this, the cards to the chest, right? So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
It's massive in customer retention, right? Like the more visible you are, the more of that trust, that more of that relationship you've nurtured over time. Yeah, they're gonna trust your dealership. They're gonna come back to you. They're gonna believe what you have to say.
Agreed. Okay, so we're now at dealer advisory. We've now got some time into dealer advisory. You're really trying to work towards mentoring technicians at a larger scale, which fundamentally, Rent Insurance Podcast, that's what we're trying to do, which is why I love getting folks like you on the show. So before I ask the life hack advice, because that's the most important question, I want a tidbit in the middle. What's one piece of advice for all of the diagnostic technicians across the world that you need them to hear? What's one piece, not from a technical support standpoint, not from a chemistry or thermodynamics? What's one diagnostic piece of advice that helped you many specific times on the hardest of stuff?
Get a whiteboard. Be on it. A lot of us struggle really badly with internalizing things, right? And I'm very strong now on promoting documentation because I believe it's a key to stopping people circling and getting stuck in one point. If you have a whiteboard and you can put one point where you start and then move to your next point and then move to your next point, right? And like have little trees where it's like, oh, I want to do this. Is it yes or no? Yes. No means it goes that way though. The upside to this is that if you get to a point, you're like, I don't know if I went right there, you can go backwards and go, oh, hey, I saw it there. So I think whiteboard is like massive for just getting everything out and open in front of you so you can see it. Because we get trapped in our own head. And even these days, we get trapped in the computer screen or laptop. You might have like 5 or 6 different tabs open, right? And you've got to cycle between tabs. And I think it's really good if you have a really wide open space that you can see all the information in one hit. That would be my first.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Really simple.
That's really awesome because we talk about journaling and whiteboarding and writing things down all of the time. And to hear somebody else basically use the same kind of phraseology as the whiteboard is, yes. I think that the analogy then becomes your tabs open. It's also in your brain, right? It's decision fatigue. And as a diagnostic technician, when you're going through hundreds of processes and hundreds of steps across several different tabs of computer information, if you don't have things written down to know exactly what you've done, if you haven't built your basic processes where you can literally do check boxes in a spreadsheet, say, yep, I've done that. Yep, I've done it. Yep. Obviously, every diagnostic is going to be slightly different. But if you have a set 20 number of steps where you go through a Google sheet, where you'll click, 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 I've done these things. And then more importantly, when you get into the weeds of doing stuff that is slightly different, if you don't have a whiteboard to say, okay, here's the diagnostic steps from Hyundai or Mercedes-Benz or Toyota or wherever. These are the diagnostic steps that I'm following, but these are my base processes that I have built over the last 15 years. And these are the exceptions to that process on this whiteboard that I can document while I do it, so I can be faster at it. So I can go, instead of just trying to figure out on one tab, I've actually got things written here, and I've got things written here that I can reference. Important for you diagnostic techs out there. Super important. And then it also leads back to documentation, right? To your point, the more documentation you have for both the technical support and potentially the 1% of 1%, challenges, great. Because then you can take pictures of the whiteboard, right? Right. You just, and then attach it to the work order as necessary. Like these are the simple things. So
yeah,
awesome.
And I really like what you said. Then you got a process now. Guys who do servicing, as we discussed at the start, they have a process.
Mm-hmm.
Put the car up, drain your oil, check under the car, take the wheels off. That's their process, right? I think having that whiteboard, and you're not going to use this every car you look at, right? This is going to be those cars where it's difficult, right? You got a car that comes in with a whatever P010001, whatever mass airflow sensor. You're going to go down the route, whatever, you got bulletins related to that or something like that, right? But we're talking those cases where you don't know. You start on those, but make sure you have your diagnostic process as well. Like, what's the first thing I do? Why do a function check of the car and check every function works, write down what doesn't work, what does work, because that might tie in later, customer interview, because that's going to lead into what the situational side of it is, right? Checking the live data, checking your fault codes, checking for technical bulletins, and now you begin. Because that's your process, right? Those 5 things or 6 things are done first. Now you can start working on the car.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it a lot. And you guys know I like data and having additional support and documentation and things like that, but it just kind of takes it to the next level when you can find ways to make the exceptions also a rule, which then becomes documentation for you on the work order. I really love that. So and because it's late, and I appreciate your time, I want to ask you the most important question. What's your one piece of advice to help a technician be happier, healthier, more productive tomorrow?
Listen, be your own advocate, okay? Nobody's going to fight harder for you than you, okay? So speak up. When you're in a workshop, please speak up. If something's not right, talk to your foreman, talk to your workshop manager, talk to your service manager, right? Be honest with them. Say, this is what I've got going on, I'm not liking this, or I want to do more of this, or, I prefer to progress my career in this direction. And really have those conversations with those service managers and controllers and stuff about where you want to go in your career, so they can help put progress plans in place to put you in the right spot. Listen, I think half of the reason why I'm on the trajectory I'm on today is not only because I wanted to progress, but it was also because the dealer at the time I was working for lost the opportunity to keep me if they had just listened to what was going on. So yeah, just that communication point, definitely make sure you speak to those service managers, regularly check in. And that's what I say. Just be open and honest with your communication. They're going to help you and grow you in their business as well.
I appreciate that. Advocate for yourself, ask questions, and let's take this to the next level. We talked about this a little bit on the panel. I've talked about this in a couple of different separate ways. I recently shared some information. I don't know how recent it's going to be based on when we publish this, but I recently talked to Brandon Nixon at Update Promise for the Service Lounge and talking about how service managers, general managers, fixed ops directors can level up their business is to do as many one-to-ones as humanly possible from a leadership down. But as a technician, if you are not getting regular one-to-ones with your service manager, your fixed director, your general manager, advocate for yourself to make that happen. Because one of the most impactful things, like Nicholas has shared, is improving your network by increasing your network size, finding the people who are important to you based on what you're doing today, but also making sure that your network includes people who are doing the thing that you want to do next, right? If you happen to want to be a fixed director of your store or a fixed director of your group, you need to be talking to the fixed director of your group now, right? Even if it's once a quarter. It's like, hey, Frank, how you doing? Haven't talked to you in a hot minute. I had a couple of really difficult callers that came through the shop, and some of the challenges I've already discussed with Tommy, our service manager, but I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of time on your calendar to discuss those 3 challenging cars that I think I have a couple of solutions to help our business and group. Would love to have 5 minutes of your time to talk about it. Maybe I buy you lunch. Now, in theory, if you tell the fixed director that you're going to buy them lunch, more than likely they're going to say yes. If they say yes, they're going to buy you lunch. But I take that's the kind of first step. The same thing applies to Nicholas, right? Where he's actually making a networking opportunity with all of the certified diagnostic technicians, which then got opportunities to talk to the technical lead at the brand. And then same thing applies to Hyundai. Those are the kinds of things that advocating for yourself means. It means you going out and you finding network of people doing the thing that you want to do next. And I share this regularly. I want to make sure I drive home as much as I possibly can, that those 5 people that you surround yourself with, that doesn't necessarily mean the physical, right? The people you talk to every day, the people that you talk to the most often should be the people doing the thing that you want to do the most. It's why I'm trying to add more people in the Sweaty Leader group so that we have a group of men and women doing the jobs that the men and women in that group also either want to improve to or get better at within being a technician. So we have fixed directors. We have a person who has went from being a technician to now owning a small shop. We have a fixed director who's over 3 stores. We have those kinds of people in this group to try and level up the whole group, right? That's what part of being the Sweaty Leader is. So Nicholas, thank you very much for giving us some very late night of your time. I appreciate it. Do you want me to post your LinkedIn or not, your emails for people to blow up or?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Post my LinkedIn. Yeah, definitely 100%. Come find me, come chat to me, ask me for some advice, ask me for some views. If you need help with anything, I'm here. Not just Australia, I'm global. So
spectacular. English speaking, very technically savvy, certified diagnostic technician is more than happy for you to reach out by LinkedIn to ask him questions, perhaps about his career, perhaps about the car, perhaps about whatever, and I will leave it up to you guys to do so. So as always, folks, I really hope you liked the episode. You share the episode with somebody who needs to hear this message. They need to advocate for themselves. And we're going to end the show like we always do with a quote. And I think I love this. Love this today. Honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom by Thomas Jefferson. Folks, remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.